remember that skillful action, which is one translation of the first of the, or not the first, but one of the parts of the Eightfold Path, is how we learn to behave like a Buddhist, in the same way that some people would talk about how to act like a Christian or like a good Muslim. We behave our way into becoming Buddhist. I'm going to read a bit just to see how this works, and I also talk about the refuges and precepts. I won't read the whole thing for tonight, but let's see how it goes. When people say they're into Buddhist practice, they usually mean that they're meditating or trying to. But that's not what I mean when I ask how someone's practice is going. American Buddhism's emphasis on meditation, originally known as bhavana in Sanskrit and Pali, American emphasis on meditation above the other two elements of practice, which are ethical conduct and generosity, or dana, has given our New World Buddhism its distinctive and flawed character. Buddhism is much more than sitting still and trying not to be distracted. Many lay Buddhists throughout South and Southeast Asia recite the classic 5 lay precepts every day, along with the 3 refuges. Lay people in these countries hardly meditate at all, but they're very aware of the teachings on ethical conduct and on generosity. And over a lifetime, many of these dedicated Buddhists gradually become more ethical and become more generous, to such a point that their way through life seems effortless and genuinely serene. They are not lusting after enlightenment, like many of their Euro-American contemporaries. Enlightenment for them is something that might happen to them in a future life. Enlightenment is rather the province of nuns and monks, and perhaps they will be lucky enough to be reborn as a monk or nun in the next lifetime. Meanwhile, they are always working on their karma, the cause and effect of thought, speech, and action, and they are always trying to be generous. Anyone who has spent time in Cambodia or Thailand or other, quote, Buddhist countries in Asia has experienced the friendliness, helpfulness, and generosity of the people in these cultures. Buddhist practice is supposed to make us happy, and some of the monks, nuns, and lay people in these countries are living proof that the practice works. People who practice in this way, that is, who focus on the precepts and on friendliness and generosity, are living out the positive cause and effect, or karma, of the practice of the way. We all have excuses for not meditating, and I participate in this folly of rationalizing along with everyone else. But even when I'm traveling, which is when I'm most likely to be out of sync and most likely to skip meditation, I always recite the 3 refuges and the lay precepts. Every day, without exception, I do this. And I recommend the practice to everyone who tells me they don't have time to meditate. When talking to prison sanghas, I recommend what I call portable practice, which means memorizing the refuges and the precepts and any other parts of the liturgy you want to incorporate into daily practice. Then you can take it with you anywhere. You don't need incense or a Buddha image or a sitting pillow or a sutra booklet. As Allah told Muhammad, just recite. Anytime, any place, you can do your practice in this way. The 3 refuges in Pali and in English are, I take refuge in the Buddha. I won't read the Pali part. I take refuge in the teaching, and I take refuge in the Sangha, usually repeated 3 times. And this is my rendering of the 5 precepts. I take up the practice of not harming living beings. I will not take what is not offered. I will not misuse the senses. That's kind of a euphemism. It refers to sex, but it also refers to the other senses. It could be food, chocolate, gadgets with screens. I take up the practice of gentle, truthful speech. It's a very important one in Buddhism. And notice the word gentle precedes truthful. It's more important that we not speak harshly than that we speak falsely. And finally, I take up the practice of not dealing in or misusing intoxicants which lead to negligence. And I think I said recently that the emphasis here is not on the drug or the alcohol. This is not a war on drugs. The emphasis is on the negligence. Anything that causes us to be negligent. So, meditating, being mindful, helps us putter around and clean up around us and want to have things in order. And then I talk about the Theravadan, the extra 3 precepts in Theravadan practice. I'll skip that. This is Ajahn Chandako, an American, who was ordained in Ajahn. Ajahn is an honorary title of someone who's been in a monk for at least 10 years. Just notice I stopped breathing when the bell first rang. That's interesting. Ajahn Chandako says, an essential foundation for meditation is to maintain a high level of virtue, living in a compassionate and responsible way toward ourselves and others by upholding the basic 5 Buddhist precepts. I looked up virtue. I've mentioned this before. It's from the Latin manly, vir, as in virile, and it really refers to a kind of showy bravery, like knights in shining armor, pounding their chest and saving damsels in distress. That's kind of the idea of virility in the earliest senses. But there's this idea that virtue means acting in a strong, I don't want to say uncompromising, but acting with a certain amount of confidence. The precepts sound like they're basically about refraining, and they are. But in addition to this reframing idea, there is this positive goal of dana, which means generosity that governs our daily actions. So when we're in a situation we don't understand or we don't know what to do with, our question should always be, what's the most generous way I could respond in this situation? Okay? We are so busy, Americans, we really get off on finishing our to-do list, crossing things off our to-do list. There's something very pleasing about that for us. And I include myself in that. It feels good to start the day with a dozen items and end the day with most of them crossed off. Sometimes it's only 11 crossed off or 6, but we know how that goes. But here's an important and final point. Ajahn Chandako again. If enlightenment is what we're interested in, we're going to have to slow down and simplify. rather than trying to change the Buddhist teaching to fit our lifestyle, we should try to change our lifestyle to fit the Buddhist teaching. So, in addition to ethical behavior, we need to look at the other actions in our lives, our mindless consumption of goods and services, our circular economic mindset, which says we must work to service our mortgage and to put our kids through college, and we must commute an hour a day, burning carbon resources to earn the money to pay for to make the car payment and the mortgage and the college tuition. And this is a really loopy loop that we've caught ourselves in. And you hear people all the time, well, I would do what I want, except I've got a mortgage. I would do what I want, but I've got to make the car payment. There's nothing wrong with a car. There's nothing wrong with buying a house. But I think Buddhism really, really asks us to look at simplifying our lives and at incorporating when we're not ticking off points on our to-do list.